topic. In fact, it's a very relevant topic. It's a topic that I've seen in the news recently, even from America, people talking about Elon Musk wanting just raw materials from Indonesia. And so Hellen has got a relevant topic, excited about it. She's done a really good job putting it together. Hellen says, I would like to thank God for giving me this opportunity and strength to finish the journey. To my family, thank you for always encouraging me and believing in me. To my friends, thank you for being my support system and always being there. And a big thank you to Ms. Sondang. You've been the best advisor I could ever ask for. To my parents, thank you for the willingness to spare your time for me. And to Mr. Wade, thank you for your patience and guidance in helping me complete the thesis. Hellen's title is Mining Millions, Missing Billions. Time for Indonesia to profit from its own wealth. Give me a second to set up the timer and I'll let you know when you can start. And I'll give the grading sheets to the two panelists. All right, you can start whenever you're ready.
You're sipping your favorite chocolate drink, looking at your phone, and maybe even wearing some gold jewelry. Doesn't it feel quite normal? But what if the cocoa in your drink, the nickel in your phone battery, and the gold in your jewelry were all imported from Indonesia, processed, and then sold back to Indonesia with a much greater price? Although Indonesia has been sitting on gold mine for years, they have always sent out their raw materials to other countries so that others may turn them into a more valuable goods, missing out Indonesia on the bigger profits. Not only does this put Indonesia and its people at a disadvantage, but it also prevents Indonesia from developing and growing since they rely too much on exporting. This begs the important question. Why do Indonesia still act like suppliers rather than manufacturers? For centuries, trade has shaped how nations exchange goods, from the Silk Road to the Industrial Revolution. Natural resources has always been crucial for society's growth, supporting food, energy, and raw materials. As for Indonesia, trade began during the Dutch colonial era, where the Dutch dominated the spice trade and forced local farmers to grow export crops. These were then shipped to Europe and reaching the Netherlands, while Indonesia suffered, buying back goods at higher price and lower quality. Despite this dark history, Indonesia remains to be one of the most resourceful nations in the whole world. Natural resources are valuable assets for development and wealth, making up 20% for the world trade and dominating exports in many countries, including Indonesia. Exporting, which is the selling of goods to other countries, is important for economic growth. But over-reliance can lead to vulnerability to global market and economic inequalities. These issues appear in Indonesia, as President Jokowi noted. Indonesia has always exported their raw materials, while it is better to consume and process them through downstream industry or domestically. For example, Indonesia's 13 million hectares of oil palm produces 46 million tons of palm oils annually. Yet, the country misses the bigger income because they do not process it locally. This issue requires global and immediate attention. The key challenge of Indonesia is that they do not utilize most of its natural resources for developing their industry, but rather using them for exports, which means missing out the potential income and reducing the local job chances. Not only that, but they are known to be low facilities and human resources will not grow and develop. Since Indonesia has become too dependent on exporting, transforming the economy would be challenging. Nevertheless, a promising solution is by manufacturing and managing their own resources to support long-term development. The president stated that they are in research about the lithium-ion battery innovations with hopes of producing them in 2 to 3 more years. At the same time, the president stated that the government is planning to stop exporting raw materials like coal, tin, and copra. Lastly, the president say that they are so close in completing research about the aviation fuel that can be used in all airplanes in the country. Just like a farmers who sell raw crops instead of turning them into processed goods like bread and juice, Indonesia will earn less while others benefits and profits from their exports. If the farmers process the crops themselves, they will keep their value and create more jobs. Similarly, if Indonesia start managing their own resources and stop exporting, it will boost their economy, increase human resources, and reduce economic inequalities among regions. One way to get there is to change the economic pattern from exporting based to processing based. Indonesia must focus on processing natural resources that can produce added values, not just raw exports. Currently, Indonesia does not maximize their potential income from exports. As the saying goes, the nation's wealth is not from within, but it is not from what it gives away, but it is from within. For example, Freeport, a US mining company, was able to operate in Indonesia with huge tax cut and little financial responsibilities. When new reserves were found, they pushed for a new agreement to give Indonesia more ownership. But in the first 10 years, they only give Indonesia 10%. In 2011, Freeport had to divest their shares to the Indonesian government by 51%. But in the first 8 years, but in the first 7 years, postponed in 2018, they only give the 51% divestment. Similarly, in the nickel industry, Chinese companies control 75% of Indonesia's refining capacity. While this foreign investment made Indonesia a leader in the nickel production, it limits Indonesia's control and ability to benefit fully from their own resources. At the same time, Indonesia's economy will improve with the help of local businesses that manage their own natural resources, including businesses in mining, oil, gas, and plantations. Companies like PT Agro Energy, PT Bukit Asam, and PT Aneka Tambang or Antam operate large-scale mining and increases Indonesia's GDP. However, many of Indonesia's other companies still do not manage their own resources and export raw materials. The government now encourages investment in downstream processing, especially in nickel, because Indonesia is the world's largest producer. More income from finished products like refined nickel will improve Indonesia's GDP. The February 2025 mining law gives smaller companies priority to excise mining areas, promoting factory development in Indonesia. While the country still lacks full processing technology, increased resource management will drive innovation, boosting efficiency, productivity, and income. The third reason that Indonesia's economy will grow is that the rupiah would strengthen. As of December 2023, Indonesia's economic growth is stable, but the rupiah remains weak. A stronger rupiah would reduce import costs, control inflation, and increase buying power. It also makes local products more affordable for foreign buyers, boosting demand. Foreign investment would also rise, benefiting sectors like trade, industry, agriculture, and tourism. Indonesia's new regulation requires exporters to keep natural resource profits within the country for a year. This keeps almost $90 billion of reserves in the country to strengthen the rupiah and even provide economic stability. Although managing a country's natural resources require a large amount of money, it also needs excellent quality of human resources. In 2024, Indonesia's human resources is ranked to be 46th out of 67 countries. This is due to the limited access to job opportunities, education, and skills, leaving many workers underpaid or unemployed. Better resource management would require improved education, and the income generated can be reinvested into human resources. An example is from Botswana, which is one of Africa's poorest countries. They discovered diamonds, and instead of letting foreign corporations to take over, they create a joint venture with De Beers, a South African corporation. They use their diamond profit to invest in healthcare, education, and infrastructure, leading to become one of the most successful countries in Africa. Indonesia could take notes, in which if resources continue to be exported, it's like giving away wealth without benefiting the nation itself. Managing resources will improve Indonesia's education system, especially in remote areas. The 2018 PISA report shows that Indonesian students' skills are still below international averages, impacting employment and increases poverty. By managing resources, revenue can improve education by building schools, training more teachers, and giving better access to materials. It also supports higher education for fields like renewable energy, farming, and mining. Additionally, the revenue income can be used to fund scholarship for Indonesian students to study abroad, returning with the skills and knowledge to solve national challenges and advanced technology for resource management. In continuation, healthcare in Indonesia will be more advanced. In remote areas, access to healthcare is limited, leading to higher rates of preventable diseases. With better management of natural resources, Indonesia can use the revenue to build more hospitals, train healthcare professionals, and improve medical equipment. This will ensure that better healthcare access for all the nation and improve public health, which is essential for productive workforce. Above these, with Indonesia natural resource management, employment opportunities will increase. The Badan Pusat Statistik, or BPS, stated that the number of unemployed people in February 2024 reached 7.2 million of people. Although the number has decreased a lot from previous years, the unemployment rate in Indonesia remains the highest in Southeast Asian countries. However, if Indonesia invests in industries like mining, manufacturing, and processing, new job opportunities will arise. These industries needed skilled workers and thus leading to more training and education. Local companies managing their own resources will also create job opportunities in technology, engineering, and sustainable practices. This will reduce unemployment and raise living standards. Lastly, with Indonesia managing its own natural resources, it will lessen economic inequalities. The 2022 Global Inequality Report ranked Indonesia sixth in wealth inequality, which arises from differences in access like basic facilities like schools and roads, between developed areas like Java and less developed regions like eastern Indonesia. Infrastructure development is crucial for resource development, as Indonesia's archipelagic nature requires connectivity for growth, regional development, and job creation. President Jokowi stated that the competitiveness would be hard without good infrastructure. Infrastructure inequality is evident between Java and other regions, with places like Sumatra and Papua with having poor infrastructure. Efficient infrastructure reduces factory costs, improves competitiveness, and shortens transit times, keeping product prices affordable. On the other hand, poor infrastructure increases costs and slow operations. It's vital for processing natural resources and Indonesia's development. Moreover, Indonesia's economic inequality could also lessen with the help of transportation in regard of processing natural resources. Transportation connects regions, supports economic growth, and is essential for national development. In developed countries, transportation infrastructure drives economic progress, where adequate infrastructure improves mobility, reduces costs, and boosts competitiveness. However, logistic costs in Indonesia as of February 2023 is still 14.29% of its GDP, which is inefficient compared to other countries. Equal access to transportation allows effective resource distribution from rural areas to market and processing facilities. Many resource-rich regions like Papua and Kalimantan lack modern infrastructure, causing delays. Improved transportation would reduce waste, increase economic value, and prevent exploitation from concentrating in one region. It would also reduce environmental damage and improve monitoring. Last but not least, Indonesia's natural resource will be processed well with a budget balance between the central and regional government. Indonesia has assets worth hundreds of trillions of rupiah if all hard resources were converted into money. Most local areas have resources like forests, mines, and agriculture land, but many are owned by provincial and central government. A more equitable budget would give local authority more capacity to manage resources based on their needs. Without enough funding, many regions would struggle. For example, Papua, the largest gold producing region, had 17.26% of poverty in March 2024, showing inequality in distribution. To manage the budget better, the central government should ensure fair revenue sharing, help local governments use funds well, and focus spending on public and environmental benefits. Regions should also work together when resources cross border, and local governments should also find other income sources and ensure transparent spending. These actions would create a fair and effective budget system. However, some people believe that managing one's natural resources is not effective. Some people argue that the processed natural resources in Indonesia might not be as good in quality compared to other nations. They believe that Indonesia is not capable in terms of human resources, technology, transportation, and infrastructure. These factors correlate with the result of the goods produced, which are based on natural resources. While some of Indonesia's goods may not match global quality, this is due to limited funding and not lack of potential. Countries like Brazil and Malaysia have shown that investment in technology and training improves product quality. Indonesia has already made progress, like in the palm industry, to the RSPO standards. With better infrastructure, training, and innovation, Indonesia can then turn its resources into high-quality products. Critics also argue that to process resources, Indonesia will incur expensive costs. It is true that local processing might be costly, but long-term benefits are greater, where more jobs, higher revenue, and stronger domestic industries could happen. Though factories needed skilled labor, equipment, and tech, the investment is vital to strengthen the economy. Over time, as skills and infrastructure improve, costs may decrease. Exporting finished goods also help cover early expenses. In 2020, Indonesia banned raw nickel exports to push local processing. This policy is expected to boost smelter investment by $555 billion, raise export values by $268 billion, and create 2.5 million jobs. These gains show that the initial costs can be returned and even exceeded. Throughout this thesis, we discussed why Indonesia should manage their own resources instead of always exporting them, from increasing their economics to reducing their economic inequalities. We saw Indonesia's potential through success in economics, human resources, and equality. This shows the value lost through raw exports and dependency on other nations. To break this cycle, Indonesia must control its own resources, invest in industries and workforce, and benefits its peoples first. Hence, what does this mean for us as average civilians? We must support local industry by choosing locally produced goods to boost local companies and lessen dependency on imports and exports. Citizens should also advocate for policy change by joining discussion, signing petitions, and voting for leaders who support national resource management. Lastly, we must start with ourselves by elevating our skills through education and awareness to strengthen Indonesia's human resources. There's a saying, the hand that holds the seeds should not go hungry. Indonesia holds the seeds, but others eat the fruits. How can the one who holds the seeds go hungry? Now is the moment for Indonesia to fully manage its own natural resources and invest in its future. Let's stop exporting our potential and begin building a stronger Indonesia by us and for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Good job. Our panelists today are Mr. Minnow and Mrs. Strickland. Mr. Minnow, would you like to go first?
Hello, Helen.
Hi, Mister.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Okay, thank you for your thesis. Thank you for your delivery. Let's start with the questions, okay?
Okay.
So we waste no time, yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Helen, from your thesis, we can conclude that Indonesia is a very rich country, yeah?
Yes.
But do you feel that you get the richness or not?
Thank you for your question, Mister. To be honest, I do not feel the richness of Indonesia because we have always been set of boundaries between the government and Indonesia itself.
What kind of boundaries that you want to emphasize over here?
I feel like Indonesia have a system where the government will control its wealth and do not distribute it evenly.
Okay. Do you have any examples of how the wealth of the nations is not distributed evenly? Can you think of any example?
An example I can think of is a research I've done earlier in the past year, where I found that the Indonesian government have a policy to give some change, like money for people in remote areas, but they do not end up in their hands because there are some people or things in between them.
So you found a missing link, yeah?
Yes.
Between the central government, local, and the people.
Yes.
So what kind of phenomenon happened in the missing link that causes the money does not reach the hand of the locals people? What kind of phenomenon? What kind of deviance act that happened in the middle?
A deviant act I can mention is somewhat a part of corruption.
A part of
Corruption.
corruptions, yeah, that's what I want to highlight, yeah, from this topic. Because, like you said, like my questions is, that's why I asked, Indonesia is a very rich country, but do you feel rich? I think it's not, yeah. Even our corruption index is above Botswana, yeah, the nation that you mentioned and that you use as an examples also. So let's look into the corruptions aspect. Okay, Helen? Okay, the one resources that you mentioned is nickel tadi ya?
Yes.
Yes, nickel. Do you have any data of what province is the best processed? Yeah, the best province that processed nickel and sell it. Do you have any data? Yeah, region. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
For now, I still do not have the data, but
Okay.
if I can guess, can I guess?
Boleh.
I think it's from Kalimantan.
Okay, it's not correct. Gak apa-apa, Helen. It's okay. Okay. You don't research it, so it's okay.
Okay.
It's from North Maluku.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, even President Jokowi gave an appreciation to its governor. But the irony is, the most corrupted province is also North Maluku. Yeah, so you said nickel been through a progress, yeah, had been through a progress, an expositive progress. But the problem, the province that has that richness and has succeeded in processing the materials is also the number one corrupted province. So Helen, do you have any solution that you can think of to eradicate these corruptions, especially for the locals government?
A solution I can give for the local governments is to enhance the security, especially in terms of government distribution. And in some terms, I would like to increase the human resources of Indonesia because they are so low and corruption is a part of a low human resources. And I think by improving the human resources, the local government can also change and distribute evenly to other regions.
Okay, that's a good answer. If I can move the questions into a more applicable way, how can you improve the human resource quality, especially in rural areas? How can you improve that?
To improve the human resources, I think one way that is quite applicable is by giving education, by scholarship, if in some cases, to giving in remote areas, because I believe that people in Indonesia are actually smart in some terms, but they do not express it because they don't have the exposure. If Indonesia have gladly give scholarship to the students, I think they can return to Indonesia with a really good knowledge and skills to improve Indonesia's advancement of technology.
So scholarship, yeah,
Scholarship and education mainly.
Scholarship. Are you specifying that this is the kind of scholarship that goes abroad or stay in local areas?
It can be both,
It can be both.
especially for remote areas, like you mentioned earlier.
Okay. Educations. Yes, educations. I'm interested in what you said before. You say that Indonesian people is really smart. Are you sure?
Indonesia has the potential to be smart, and there are some parts of Indonesia that are actually part of smart.
Okay. Do you know where, quote unquote, the smart people is located the most?
There's data that is classified to be in Jakarta.
Jakarta. So it's Java centrist. Yeah?
Yes.
The development. So how can you ensure that this education program is well balanced between all the province? Like you said, Papua has the gold mine. Gold mine supposedly ensure richness, but Papua is the poorest province. So how can you ensure that this is well balanced?
I can ensure it's well balanced by again giving it to the government, because government have central and provincial government, right? And I think that they need to have to share equal terms between both two, because if they don't have to share equal things, then it will not be centered into the regions.
Okay. Thank you, Helen. You mentioned earlier about Freeport, yeah?
Yes.
How the company, the Freeport company, used to have little taxes and control. Do you think why our government let it happen?
Corruption.
Corruptions.
And I think back then they think like with little income is better than having zero income at all.
All right. Do you think is it corruptions or inferiority in the mentality back then?
I think it's both.
Both.
Or I think the first one is the inferiority and second is corruption, in which the inferiority leads to corruption.
Inferiority leads to corruption.
The mentality of having corruption.
Okay. Thank you, Helen. Still
All right.
have.
Yep, we need to move on now.
All right,
Mrs.
thank you.
Strickland.
Thank you.
I loved hearing Minno's questions for you because he's speaking as a local, so I'll be representing someone from the outside, right? So from someone from the outside looking in, by the way, your topic is really fascinating and it's so timely, and you did a beautiful job presenting it and giving a lot of statistics and data. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss.
Yeah, it was really well done. So I, don't have a social sciences background. Like I have zero knowledge of this topic except just sort of superficial knowledge from what I read in newspaper headlines, right? So I am truly your person that you probably are targeting, is like the person that doesn't know anything, right? So here's my question for you. What could Indonesia do? Because I don't think anyone would argue that you're saying something good. This is good. No one's going to say, no, we shouldn't do this. I think everyone would say, yes, we should. Why are we not doing this? Why are we not sharing the wealth? What is the problem? Mr. Minnow addressed corruption. I think there's another aspect to it. What kind of impact do you think, or is there one, that years of colonization perhaps had on the mindset and the thinking of the country as it is now? Do you think that's a factor?
Thank you, Miss, for the question. And I think it's a very interesting approach where you think that there's colonization that improved the mindset. And I think it might actually have the correlation, because when Indonesia is being colonized, they quote unquote become the under person and they become less superior. Therefore, I think in today's world, Indonesia became less control on the world, and they become less. They don't have the confidence.
Right, less respected
Yeah.
perhaps on the world stage. Yeah, so I do think that that's right, because when you look at Indonesian history, I feel sad when I read Indonesian history and think about the Dutch colonialization, and they're coming basically to take your natural resources, your spices and things, and they're robbing you to make sure other people get to enjoy them, and not really, maybe not giving as much in return as could have been. Now, yeah. So I think you're right. I think that plays into it. So then how do we prevent, or how do we, maybe not prevent, how do we overcome that kind of mindset that says, we need to be subordinated, or we've always been subordinated, and so poor us. Like, is there a sense of victimization in that, or what could be done to help overcome that thinking that you guys have the capacity and the ability?
I think you can bring more awareness to this topic because I feel like the people in Indonesia still do not think this topic to be very urgent, and they think that they are still good in the bottom line. So I think they keep in their comfort zone and do not expand much.
I think that's true. I think that's a good comment. And I also think what Mr. Minnow shared about education is really important. So, and you mentioned actually in your argument that human resources need to be developed. And who are the human resources? It's the next generation. It's you guys, right? And so just by you even bringing this topic and sharing it, you're actually proving that you're taking charge and you're doing something about it. So I hope one day I get to see you in government. I hope I get to see you producing like beautiful things, gold mines or whatever, and making all kinds of wonderful things. So I'm so proud of you. Okay, so last question is, I think a big hindrance in my mind, especially when I travel outside of Java and I go to more remote places, is infrastructure, which you addressed. So it's the roadways, it's the highways, it's hospitals, it's just all the things that it takes to have a more urban civilization in some of the remoter places. How do we push and promote and develop infrastructure? What could be done? I think you said only 14% of your GDP is being given to it right now. So what should it look like, and how would you promote that?
I think that the government should pay more attention to infrastructure, especially in roads and like basic facilities like schools, because if there are no things like of infrastructure, Indonesia will not develop well. And I think the right percentage of GDP should be like under 5% to ensure that it will be okay.
Oh, okay. So when you compare it to other countries, when I think you said Indonesia is not spending as much as other countries, do you kind of have an idea of like how much other countries are spending, or like Botswana, is that what? Botswana that you gave as an example. Like, what are they spending on infrastructure? Do you know?
I think they spend on infrastructure on the roads. Like they have like sea roads where they can connect many regions like from driveway.
Yeah, exactly. So the percent of their GDP probably is higher being devoted to the infrastructure and the logistics of getting a product from here to there. Because I do think that that's part of what's hindering the downstream production process, right? Because you don't have the ability to get everything that's needed to these regions to do the work,
Yes.
right? Yeah, and get it out again. Yeah. I don't think I have any others. Oh, I do. One more. Intellectual theft. That's one of the things that Indonesia, I think, from an outsider's perspective, they look at Indonesia and they say, Indonesians are always stealing our ideas, so we don't want to come and make our product in Indonesia. We want to export your resources and make it somewhere else and let you buy it back. How can we combat that mindset?
I think we need to enhance Indonesia's reputation first, in which if Indonesia still remains low in what others people think, they will not develop. And second, through Indonesians' mindset, I think we can show ourselves that we are able and we are not always become the underlings, and we can be superior also.
Yeah, I think having some stronger intellectual property laws and things like that could be helpful, right? Because then it shows the rest of the world we're serious about this and we're going to protect your intellectual rights when you produce your product here.
Yes.
All right. There's several themes in the questions that have come in from your peers, and usually it's corruption in education, right? When I was, so let me preface this. When I was a software engineer and working for a semiconductor company, we used South Asian companies to produce a lot of our semiconductor chips, right? And in fact, we always used South Korea, we used Taiwan, we started using a little bit of the Philippines, but we were worried about their quality. We use Malaysia, but we're a little worried, but we never once considered Indonesia. In fact, Americans don't even realize Indonesia is the fourth most populous country in the world. They think Indonesia's tiny, and it has to do with its position on sort of in the technological world, I think. And so, all that to say, education is important. Get rid of corruption's important, and infrastructure is important. So those are three big things we're going to tackle. If you made a pathway to do this, how would you do it? What's the first thing you got to do? Is it education? Is it infrastructure? Or is it get rid of corruption?
Thank you for your question, Mr. Wade. In my opinion, the first thing we should do is to get rid of corruption, second, education, and lastly, infrastructure. Because corruption is the main part where the government will handle everything and distribute to other regions. And if corruption is the main problem, it will not create a better Indonesia. Second is education. If education have good human resources, it also develop, and so do for infrastructure.
Very good. So what are, aside from, I know that, Indonesia is in really a prime position with its nickel resources, I think nickel, right? For the whole electric car industry and those the batteries there. And yet, I remember seeing that Elon Musk was like, no, I want your raw resources. I don't want you to make batteries for me. I want your raw resources. And I don't know where that's gone from then. Do you know if Indonesia actually has respectable battery making industry factories at this point? Do we or not?
Yes, we do. Like I've mentioned earlier, the government is doing the lithium-ion battery where they are doing the battery innovations.
Okay, good. And what are some other finished goods besides batteries that Indonesia really doesn't produce much of but could using their own resources?
They can use palm oil, where it can be used for biodiesel and cosmetics, and also rubber, in which they are very rich into medical equipment, and copper and gold.
Oh, very good. Any other questions from?
So I was just looking yesterday at the mall at some really beautiful gold earrings. And
I said she couldn't buy
I
them.
pointed them out to Mr. Strickland. I said, wouldn't these be pretty? That would be so nice. And we looked at the price, and then we decided it wasn't so pretty. And so, so the question is, do you think those were produced here? Or do you think the gold was taken somewhere else, made somewhere else, and then brought back here? Because it was really expensive. So I was trying to understand where it was produced.
I think there's a chance like it's from Indonesia, and there's a chance it's not. But if it's from Indonesia, it's gonna be like with a lower price, and when it's processed, it's returning back. It's gonna be much more expensive. So I think we need to cross-check first if it's from Indonesia or not.
Okay, so are there some people that do produce gold, like jewelry and things here in Indonesia and sell them here? Yes?
Yes, there is.
And are we, as a nation, as Indonesia, selling those for export?
I think there are some cases, yes, but not as much as raw materials.
Yeah, so I wonder why. I mean, it seems like if you could produce it seems like you have a really ripe market, right? So if you can produce gold at a better price, for instance, than maybe what another country can sell it for, and you can undercut the market and become known as the gold producer, not just exporter, but the actual products, right? So what do you think is preventing that?
The one that's preventing is because people sometimes acknowledge Indonesia's refined product to be less good in quality compared to other nations because of their technology and other stuff.
Okay, so it really is, again, our standing on the world stage here in this nation. And so how do we elevate that standing? It's almost like you need a whole PR campaign in the government, right?
Yeah.
To sort of promote Indonesian quality and integrity, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to do.
Yeah, isn't it funny that there are companies that are known for Swiss chocolate, and where does the cocoa come from?
Indonesia.
Yeah, and it's funny, why isn't it Indonesian
Yeah.
chocolate, right?
Yes.
And so, yeah, okay. Well, I think, you've finished, and so good job, Helen. You've done a great job. All right, so let's see. What we'll do is we'll meet friends and family for photos over here, and panelists as well, advisors and anyone else in the photos, and then at 1:05 we will start with Steve. Don't call me Daddy.